All right, kids, are you ready to hear a story?
Yeah.
Welcome to Witch Toast and Other Tales. This story is called The Haunted School. Once upon a time, there was an elementary school. Every year on October 31st, they had a festival called Halloween Fest. They had rides and food, face painting, and a haunted house, but no clowns. Clowns were strictly forbidden. You see, they used to have clowns, lots of clowns. And then one year, there was a freak balloon dogfight accident, and a dozen clowns tragically lost their lives. In the years that followed, security guards saw strange things on Halloween night, and all the kids said the school was haunted by the ghosts of the clowns. It got to be so bad that security guards kept quitting the day after Halloween. They said that from the stroke of midnight until the first light of dawn, that school was no place for the living. So for that one night a year, just before midnight, the guards would lock up all the doors and gates and leave the place completely empty until the day shift arrived at dawn. Now, of course, there were kids that went to that school, and some of them were mischief makers. And two of those mischief makers were Brett and Wallace. They loved to pull pranks, to go where they weren't supposed to, and generally to ignore the rules and do as they pleased. One day, a week or so before Halloween, Brett rushed up to Wallace on the playground. "Wallace," he said, "our chance has come." "What are you talking about?" said Brett. "I overheard two of the guards talking. On Halloween night, there'll be nobody in the school. No guards, nobody at all. It's a perfect chance to pull a really great prank." For the next week, they planned, they schemed, and they gathered supplies. And on Halloween night, they went out trick-or-treating and had a fantastic time. Then they went home, they ate a bunch of candy, and fell asleep. The parents were surprised they didn't want to stay up late, but figured they were tired from running around all night. Around 20 minutes before midnight, Wallace's alarm went off. He quickly shut it off, got dressed, and snuck through the house into the garage. There he picked up a small wicker basket he'd hidden in the corner, then slipped out the back door. A few minutes later, he met Brett in the park across from the school. "Did you bring it?" Brett asked. "Right here," said Brett, tapping the basket. Wallace smiled. "Perfect." They hid in the bushes and watched the front doors. There were only a couple of minutes left before midnight, and there were still two cars in the parking lot. "Those have to be the guards' cars," said Wallace. "Are you sure they're going to leave? They're always here at night." But just as he spoke, the school doors opened and two security guards walked out. They got into their cars and pulled out of the parking lot. Wallace looked at his watch. 11:59 p.m. Wallace and Brett grinned at each other and waited for the cars to disappear. And they crawled out of the bushes, dashed across the street, and onto the school grounds. They made their way along the wall until they came to the fifth window. "This is it," said Brett. Fingers crossed they didn't lock it. He reached up and pushed. The window slid open. They gave out a silent cheer, then pulled themselves up and into the school. At night, the school was very different. It was dark and quiet, kind of spooky. They got away from the windows, went out of the room, and into the hallway and turned on their flashlights, creeping silently along, whispering excitedly. They turned a corner and then heard a noise behind them. "What was that?" asked Wallace. They shined their lights behind them but saw nothing. Then they turned back to keep going and took a step forward. Wallace stepped on something and let out a shriek. "Ah!" He jumped back. "What is it?" asked Brett. They shined their flashlights down. There was a little balloon dog, a very cute little balloon dog. Brett started laughing. "Ha ha ha. Look out, he might bite you," he teased. "Your voice is so high, I thought your little sister was here." Yeah, said Brett. "Let's keep going, we're almost there." A minute later, they reached the principal's office and went inside. They took the basket over to the desk, snickering, and set it on top, right in the middle. "Let me see real quick," said Brett. Wallace undid the clasp and opened it just enough for Brett to shine his light and look inside. The snake was all coiled up, and it flicked out its tongue at them. Perfect. They latched the basket, gave each other a high five, and walked back out into the hall. "All right, let's get out of here," said Brett. But as they went out into the hall and turned to go back the way they'd come, Wallace said, "Hold on, I've got an idea. Let's go to the teacher's lounge and switch the salt and the sugar." "Well, all right, but let's make it quick." So they turned around and headed towards the teacher's lounge. They're getting close when they heard a strange noise coming from around the corner in front of them. They heard it once and froze. Then it came again. Then a third time. "Quick, let's go back," whispered Wallace. They ran as fast and silently as they could, but now they were in a long hall, the same one with the door to the principal's office, and the noise was getting closer so fast there was no way they could turn the corner before they were seen. "Back in here." Brett opened the door to the principal's office, and once again they slipped inside and shut it. They stood there silently and listened. The noise outside in the hallway got louder and louder. Whatever it was coming closer. They held their breath as it approached the door. And kept walking right on past. When the sound had faded, they breathed a sigh of relief. "Whew, that was close," said Wallace. "But what was it?" asked Brett. "I don't recognize that sound." "Me neither," said Wallace. "But let's not worry about it. Let's just get out of here." Then Brett looked over at the principal's desk. "Oh no," he said. "The snake's loose." The basket was tipped over on its side, and the snake was nowhere to be seen. They walked over to the desk and gasped. There on the floor behind the desk was the snake, covered in blood. It looked chewed. "What the heck did that?" asked Brett, his voice scared and panicky. "I don't know," said Wallace, "but let's get out of here right now." They went to the door and listened, but heard nothing. So they opened it a little bit and looked out. Nothing. "There's a window in Mrs. Sharon's room. That's the closest one," said Brett. They went a few doors down and went into Mrs. Sharon's classroom. Then they ran to one of the windows. They unlocked it, but they couldn't get it open. They tried pushing together, but it wouldn't budge. They tried all the windows in that room, but none of them would budge. That's when they heard the noise again. But this time it was like a whole chorus of that same noise. They couldn't tell if it was moving, but it sounded like it came from a different part of the school, like over by the teacher's lounge. Brett was losing his cool. "What is that? I don't like the sound of that. Something's not right." "Chill out, dude," said Wallace. "Look, we'll just go back to the window we came in and get out of here." All right. That's a good plan, man. Let's do it." They listened at the door and didn't hear anything right outside, so they stepped into the hall and started walking as quickly and quietly as they could back toward the room with the window they'd come in. All the while, the strange din behind them seemed to grow louder and louder, but not any closer. All of a sudden, there was a loud pop right under them. "Ah!" They both shrieked and jumped back. They shined their flashlights down, and there on the ground was the tiny little balloon dog they'd seen on the way in. Brett had stepped on it this time, and this time it had popped. They breathed a sigh of relief, and Wallace said, "Wait a minute, what happened to the sound?" The school had gone silent. They stood and listened, and for a moment there was nothing, and then the sound started up again. This time, it was moving closer. "Run!" screamed Brett, and run they did, flying down the hall, taking turn after turn. But even though they were running as fast as they could, the noise behind us getting closer, closer, closer. They reached the room with the window they'd come and opened the door and ran to the window, but it was closed and locked. Wallace started fumbling with it, but the locks wouldn't turn no matter how hard he tried. The noise got closer and closer, and it almost reached the room. "Shut the door," he shouted. "Lock it, quick!" Brett ran to the door and slammed it shut and turned the deadbolt. Then he ran to Wallace, and they both pulled on the lever, pulled on it with all their might. The sound was now right outside the door, and then it stopped. The door handle slowly turned, and deadbolt caught in the frame as something tried to push its way in. Gentle at first, then harder and harder and harder, and the noise came back again, getting louder and louder and louder. Brett and Wallace were sweating fiercely and running out of strength. The window would not open. "This isn't working," said Brett. Now the doors were shaking so hard, it was like any second they would break off its hinges and splinter into 1,000 pieces. And then there came a great cracking sound, and a line appeared right down the door's middle. Wallace ran to the teacher's desk, searching for something, anything. Pencils, pens, paper, a ruler, an apple. No, 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 no! And then his hand grabbed something hard and round, something heavy, a snow globe. He picked it up, turned, and threw it with all his might out the window. Crash! Came the sound of breaking glass. Brett ran and dove out of the window, landing and rolling on the grass below. Wallace was right behind him, but just as he dove through the window, he heard a loud ripping sound of shattering wood, as the door burst into 1,000 pieces behind him. What felt like a splinter caught him in the butt as he passed through the window. But he didn't care. He hit the ground running, Brett right in front of him. They ran across the street, through the park, and all the way to the street both of them lived on. Then they split up and went home. When Wallace got to his house, he snuck inside and went into the bathroom. He closed the door, pulled down his pants, and looked at where the splinter had entered. There was a hole in his skin, surprisingly wide, and he could see something inside. He got a pair of tweezers, reached in, grabbed hold, and pulled out a tiny piece of a popped balloon. The end.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe.